Welcome to the Daily Decameron, Tales to Connect Us in Troubled Times. Episode 8, The Gentleman Brigand. Today's tale is based on a true historical incident, and its hero, Ghino di Tacco, was a real person. A notorious 13th century highwayman of noble birth, Ghino was renowned as a fierce and fearsome bandit. His fortress, where the tale is set, still dominates the Tuscan hill town of Radicofani, strategically perched above the Via Francigena, the main artery that connected papal Rome to northern Europe. Despite his reputation as a ruthless outlaw, Ghino di Tacco became a beloved folk hero, often referred to as Il Brigante Gentiluomo, the gentleman brigand, because instead of taking everything from his victims, he always left them with enough to live on. Boccaccio loved these kinds of anti-heroes and relished the surprise effect of placing them in heightened circumstances in order to reveal their true character. And it's thanks in large part to this little tale that Ghino di Tacco captured the popular imagination, so much so that he's often been called the Robin Hood of Italy. Decima giornata, novella seconda, Ghino di Tacco. The 10th day, the second novella, the tale of Ghino di Tacco. The fierce and fearless nobleman, Ghino di Tacco, banished from Siena and declared an enemy of the Pope, staged a rebellion against the Church of Rome in his new hometown, Radicofani, instructing his men to ambush and rob anyone who passed through the surrounding countryside. Now it happened that the abbot of Cluny, one of the richest clergymen in all the world, came to stay at the court of Pope Boniface in Rome, and there he began complaining of stomach pains. The papal physicians advised him to go at once to the baths of Siena to take the waters. So the abbot headed north from Rome with an entourage of attendants, mules, horses, and baggage, straight into Ghino's territory. Hearing of this, Ghino had his men ambush the abbot and his retinue, trapping them in a narrow mountain pass. And then he sent an escort to politely invite the abbot to join him at his castle. On hearing this, the enraged abbot said he would do nothing of the kind, and that he would have nothing to do with Ghino. Instead, he insisted that he and his people be allowed to proceed on their journey, reminding the escort that they were traveling under the auspices of the Pope himself. To this, the escort humbly replied, "Sir, you have come to a place where, aside from God's power, we fear nothing, and where excommunications and interdicts are themselves excommunicated." The abbot could see that his entourage was surrounded and greatly outnumbered, and so he had no choice but to follow the escort to Ghino's castle. There he was taken to a small, dark room, while his men were all given fine accommodations in the castle, and their horses and baggage were placed in safekeeping. Once Ghino knew that the abbot was settled in, he went to his room and said, "Sir, the master of the house, Ghino di Tacco, whose guest you are, has sent me, his humble messenger, to ask if you would be good enough to tell him where you were traveling to and for what reason." The abbot, for once setting aside his haughtiness, explained where he was going and why. Ghino listened and, on hearing of the abbot's illness, decided he would try to cure him himself. He took his leave, ordering that a fire be kept burning in the abbot's quarters, and that he be well guarded. The next morning, Ghino brought the abbot 2 slices of toasted bread, wrapped in the whitest of linens, and a glass of vernaccia from the abbot's own supply. Giving these to the abbot, he said, "Good sir, as a young man, my lord Ghino di Tacco studied medicine, and he says that there is no better cure for ailments of the stomach than the treatment he is preparing for you, which starts with this bread and wine. So take them and be comforted." The abbot, whose anger was exceeded only by his hunger, wolfed down the bread and drank the wine. But once he had eaten, feeling fortified, he began asking outraged questions and making demands, insisting that he be allowed to see Ghino at once. Ignoring this request, Ghino politely answered some of the abbot's questions, promising him that Ghino would come to visit him as soon as he was able, and then he left the abbot alone until the next day, when he brought the same portion of bread and wine. Ghino kept the abbot on this diet for several days, until he noticed that the abbot had eaten some of the dried fava beans that Ghino had secretly left in his room as a test. "On behalf of my lord Ghino di Tacco," he said, "I am instructed to ask you how your stomach is feeling." "It seems fine to me," said the abbot, "and now if I were only out of his clutches, I would like nothing more than to feast on everything in sight. So completely have his medicines cured me." Then Ghino prepared a lavish room for the abbot, and the next morning he went to him and said, "Good sir, now that you are quite recovered, it is time to release you from your sick room." And taking him by the hand, he escorted the abbot to his new quarters, leaving him there with all his attendants. The abbot told them about the kind of life he'd been leading in the castle, and they, in turn, told him that they had been marvelously received by Ghino. And then, for several days, Ghino welcomed the abbot to join his entourage in feasting on fine food and wine, all the while keeping his true identity a secret. After several days spent in this fashion, he had all of Ghino's effects moved to a great hall, and all of his horses, right down to the scrawniest nag, assembled in a courtyard below. Bringing the abbot to this hall and leading him to the window where he could see the courtyard and all his possessions, he asked him how he was feeling and if he thought he had the strength to ride a horse. "I'm fine," said the abbot, "and I'll be even better once I'm out of Ghino's clutches." "Then, Lord Abbot," Ghino replied, "I must tell you now that it was not wickedness that drove your captor to become a highwayman and an enemy of the court of Rome. He is a nobleman, driven from his home in poverty by many a powerful enemy, and forced to turn to robbery to defend his life and his nobility. I tell you this, Lord Abbot, because I am Ghino di Tacco. And because I can see that you are a valorous gentleman, I will spare you the fate that would befall anyone else in your position. Instead of taking whatever portion of your possessions might please me, I will put it to you to decide, considering my needs and the care I have given you, whatever tribute you wish to grant me. You see all of your possessions spread out here before you. Leave me what you wish, and once you have, you may stay or take your leave as you please." The abbot was astonished to hear a notorious highwayman express such generous sentiments. His anger and disdain vanished in an instant, and he knew with all his heart that Ghino was his true friend. He ran to embrace him, saying, "Cursed be the fate that has forced you into such an infamous profession. I swear before God that to win the friendship of the kind of man I now see you to be, I would put up with even greater injury than I thought I had suffered at your hands." And so saying, he asked to be given only his most essential possessions and a few of his horses, leaving all the rest to Ghino. And having done this, he returned to Rome. When the Pope asked him if the baths had done him any good, the abbot replied, "Holy Father, I found an excellent physician much closer than the baths, and he cured me completely." And he told him about his captivity in Ghino's castle and the diet of bread and wine. Then the abbot, moved by an impulse of generosity, asked the Pope if he would grant him a favor. And the Pope, expecting something altogether different, said he would gladly grant whatever indulgence the abbot requested. So the abbot said, "Holy Father, I ask that you restore my physician, Ghino di Tacco, to your good graces, for of all the valiant and noble men I have known, he is among the greatest, and I am sure that the evil acts he has committed are less by his own choice and more the fault of fortune. And if you were to change that fortune and provide for him the means to live according to his station, I do not doubt that you will find him to be just the kind of man I know him to be." The Pope, being generous of heart and well disposed toward men of worth, said that if Ghino was the kind of man the abbot said he was, he would gladly lend him his support. And so he invited Ghino to Rome under safe conduct, and before long, the Pope, seeing what a worthy man and what a wise physician he was, made him a Knight of the Order of Hospitallers, and bestowed on him a priory of that order. And in this post of honor, Ghino di Tacco lived out the rest of his days. a servant of the Holy Church, and a faithful friend of the Abbot of Cluny. Thanks for listening to The Daily Decameron, a production of the Italian Cultural Institute of San Francisco. Anna Maria Di Giorgio, director. This program was produced by Franca Cavallaro and edited by Enrica Cavalli, with music performed by John Sayles. I'm your host and translator, Steve Siegelman. We hope you'll join us for more episodes in both English and Italian. Meanwhile, stay well, stay connected, and share your favorite stories with the people you love.